Oh, my dogs.
Are you referring to your feet or are you referring to actual dogs?
Actual dogs.
Okay, why don't we debate that while we podcast? It's a
Okay.
short one this week.
All right.
This is the Android Buffet Podcast, episode number 544, recorded Thursday, June 24th, 2021, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Dum-dum-dum.
So, welcome once again to a episode of the Android Buffet Podcast, which I hear mixed reviews about adopting an alternative name. We got some feedback on the matter.
We did. And when you say mixed reviews, do you mean some people like it and some people don't? Or do you mean we like it, but nobody else does?
Well, mixed in the sense that, some people like the idea of us adopting another name and some people dislike it.
Okay. What feedback did we get?
So this comes from the Door-to-Door Geek. Who suggested that we might consider rebranding ourselves to something like Automation Buffet, IoT Buffet, or Trusted Network Buffet, because everything we discuss should be on its own network and not with his normal computing environment.
Huh?
Well, I think it's more of that we don't talk as much about Android as we used to, because there isn't always as much Android news. This week, all of the Android sites that I usually read to hear new and interesting things going on in Android, all they wanted to talk about was Prime Day.
Which
Is
is just like a self-imposed Black Friday.
Yeah, no, there were some decent deals, but it's not like in previous years where I was constantly finding like good inexpensive things that I wouldn't be able to find the rest of the time. I found like, what did I find that was on sale? Oh yes, the solar panel for my curtain was $7 off.
Does that make it $7?
No, normally 20, so it was like $13.
That's not bad.
Well, the problem is that the curtain bot has a rechargeable battery in it, and the rechargeable battery, when you have to recharge it, you have to take the thing down, then you have to recalibrate it. So originally I said, why do I need a solar panel? But it was annoying me, so I ordered the solar panel when it was on sale. So I bought it for my convenience. But
Right. Cool.
yeah, so as you know from the behind the scenes matter, I am working on having the Android Buffet logo relettered to say Techno Buffet, so that we can use both. So I am not killing the Android Buffet brand that has served us so well, but I am making sure we have this alternative brand. I wonder if we can simulcast. Is there an advantage to having like two different websites for this and two different feeds for the same product that all point at the same actual files?
Sure. It would open us up to a new audience while not losing us our current audience.
So you can go to Android Buffet and subscribe, or you can go to Techno Buffet and subscribe.
Right.
Well, I'll fiddle with it. I'm waiting for that sweet, sweet logo. So, in non-Android news, because again, nobody was talking about anything that I could really sink my teeth into this week. Just this afternoon, my new what do they call those things? Let me get the package. I always get confused about my tool naming conventions. So I told you that I couldn't hook the screws because I didn't bring the little Allen wrench when I was trying to fix my 3D printer. So I got a 6-piece ball end screwdriver metric set.
Nice.
Well, those little Allen wrenches drive me crazy. You have to turn them and they're a pain in the neck. So I figured I would actually get the tools for the job. Something that would allow me to tighten things with a little more torque. Torque is the right word, right? I'm a self-taught handy person.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So the screwdriver set arrived this afternoon. So after work, before I came and set up for the podcast, I went to try to tighten the screws, and I decided since I had scratched up yet another nozzle that I would try replacing it. They're not that expensive. When I was replacing the nozzle, a screw fell out of the entire mechanism. This worries me because I have absolutely no idea where the screw came from. So I have a screw loose.
That's funny.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep the screw until I figure out where it belongs. But I'm still having trouble with this whole bed leveling sensor as opposed to using a stop, which annoys me because I seem to be having some other problem, and it may just be my imagination where the Z motor is not going up and down as smoothly as I'd like it to.
Have you? Do you have lead screws? You have lead screws, right?
You're talking about like a big, gigantic screw that it goes up and down on?
Yes.
Singular, lead screw 1.
Okay, have you lubricated it at all?
Am I supposed to?
You've got metal riding on metal, so yeah.
Okay, well, no, I thought I would have a little more time after buying it before I had to lubricate it. Now I have to buy lead screw lubricator?
No. A general...
You're not going to tell me to use more hairspray, are you?
No. In this case, you want something like an all-round silicone lubricating grease.
I've been meaning to buy that. I had a stuck lock, and I went to find some silicone lubricating spray to loosen it.
Probably not the best for that. For that, you probably want some sort of graphite powder.
I was in a pinch, but I did find a bottle of lubricating spray somewhere in the building that had a label from a store that hasn't existed in 15 years.
Just remember, WD-40 is not lubricant.
I know. This wasn't WD-40. Anyway, I actually also discovered I'm out of WD-40, but that's neither here nor there. At some point, I have to go and get some lubricating sprays of various types, but I will look into it. But it made me wonder, and I hate wondering about anything that's going to make me spend money. So you have a much better 3D printer than I do, correct?
Probably.
No, you've said you upgraded to a nicer model. Have all of your 3D printers had one lead screw or 2 lead screws?
None of the above.
So no lead screws?
So my first printer had 2 lead screws.
Yes.
And this one has 3.
Okay. No, because they do make a Z-axis upgrade kit where you could put a lead screw on the other side.
Highly recommended.
I thought about it only because what kept happening was because of the calibration, the entire what do you call that? The thing that the nozzle and the print head and the whole mechanism sits on that goes up and down. What's the term for that?
The nozzle and the heater and the fans.
Yeah, they're all mounted on the thing that goes up and down.
Constructor is normally called the hot end.
No, I know that, but I'm saying the cross beam that's mounted on that goes up and down. What's the name for that particular piece?
Oh, the gantry.
Okay. I should
I
have known
forgot
that in
you've got
factory.
an iStyle.
Okay. Well, the thing is that it would, because I had removed the Z stop to put in the bed leveling sensor, it was actually trying to descend onto the board itself, and that meant that one of the sides started coming up,
Yep.
which makes me worry about two things. One, maybe I should put in that extra lead screw, and two, did I damage the motor on the other side? Could I have caused problems with the motor on the other side by it doing that?
Unlikely.
Hmm.
You're most likely to, well, you're talking about a lead screw, so you're not going to strip it.
Probably not. I would have seen that anyway.
And the motor will stepper motors don't have a whole lot of torque. So when they start running into where they can't turn, they just start skipping. But it's a momentary thing because it's just the electrical, they're run by magnetic fields. So the magnetic field just skips. So it doesn't actually damage the motor.
The other reason why I'm reluctant to get another lead screw right now, well, actually, I had two reasons. Number one, I'm throwing money at this thing and I can't get it to print right now. So I think maybe I should actually figure out the bed leveling sensor problem before I put more money into the thing.
Yeah, your Ender 3 should produce decent prints stock. So,
Well, I don't regret putting on the extruder because the plastic one was driving me crazy.
okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have done the bed leveling sensor.
No, that should be fine.
Yeah, but the problem is now I can't.
What that does is it lets you tell your bed is probably not perfectly flat. So it lets the printer discover the actual shape of the bed so it can adjust the up and down of the head as it's printing, which is a good thing.
Yeah, my problem is that so far since I did that, it has actually tried to, it's been either too high or too low. I have not been able to get it calibrated.
Okay. I
So,
would recommend, do you like Discord?
there's one like a messaging platform,
Yeah.
as much as any other one.
Because there's a Discord for basically all general 3D printing where they are extraordinarily helpful. It's called the 3D Meltdown 3D printer Discord. Maybe somebody in there can be helpful.
Well, I figured now that I've replaced yet another nozzle, I would try one more time to see what I could do. And the only reason that it's not running right now is I thought that the fan would make it somewhat annoying while we were talking.
Sure.
But
Keep in mind that brass nozzles,
yeah,
those things are disposable. They're like,
yeah. No, I'm saying usually that in the reading that I said they last a couple of months. But if
they can.
but if I keep scratching them on the print bed, I figure I don't.
No, you're absolutely right. That's how you ruin a nozzle.
Yeah, so I needed to eliminate that as a possibility, and they're not so expensive that I couldn't waste a couple. And now that I have my nozzle removal tool, I'm getting a lot of tools for this.
They're so fun.
Well, the thing is, some of them are in previous things. Now, not only can I do that, but with all of these extra ball drivers, I can build a lot of IKEA furniture. I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan of Allen wrenches.
And there's a technique for using Allen wrenches single-handed.
No, I'm saying the ones that come in
Oh yeah,
furniture boxes, as opposed to using your own more durable and better quality versions of the same product.
And ball versions, as long as you're not trying to torque with them, balls make a lot of difference. They're just a lot easier to use, so you don't have to get straight up in them.
Yeah, so I figured I'd buy them, and I could
Cool.
use them outside of the 3D printer. The only problem is they won't fit in the little drawer that comes with the printer, but can't have everything.
I've seen Ender 3 uh, drawers on Thingiverse.
Yeah, well, it comes with a drawer under the print bed, but again, it's not big enough to store that, an entire collection of screwdriver-sized items.
All right.
Well, again, maybe I'll get like a little box to put it next to it. Anyway, here's to next week being a better week for my 3D printer. At least it's keeping me busy. Off the streets,
Yep.
making trouble.
That's a good thing.
Yep. Well, I might be out there. What do people do when they're causing trouble because they can't 3D print?
They're causing trouble.
Okay. So that's that story. On the home improvement and home automation front, since I am hanging around here, and I had trouble when I was here in colder weather. I am in the process, along with my father, who is retired and therefore has time, replacing all of the line voltage thermostats in this building with digital ones. So this is a challenge for home automation. This building doesn't have central heat. It uses each room has its own line voltage electric baseboard.
Yeah.
So doing home automation with that is a tremendous pain in the neck, because if you wanted to, you'd have to buy a smart thermostat, and they don't make that. There isn't that much choice in the line voltage smart thermostat market. I only know of 2 models myself, and you'd have to buy one for every room. So if you figure that an average smart thermostat can cost $100 if you go for the cheap end, that means that let's see, how many thermostats did I calculate here? There would be about 8 in the building. Well, 9 if you count the one baseboard that doesn't have a thermostat, that just has a dial on the unit itself, which I'm not counting. So that could rack up a bit, and it's not really necessary. So what I did was 2 years ago, I replaced the thermostat in the central living room of the building, and that's the only one that has remote control. So it's not a programmable, it can be controlled over Z-Wave. So then the idea is, if it got cold and I wasn't here, I could turn on the heat in the main room. That would warm up the building a little, and the other rooms, when on arrival, could get warmer. You don't know much about this problem because you are not used to, let's say, sub-freezing weather.
That would be true.
Yes, so this is not a problem you'd have.
No.
Yeah, but
we don't have heaters. We have heat pumps.
Yeah, you don't need full heat. Now, this community that I'm hiding out in, that you've heard I spend a lot of time in, was built as seasonal. So it was only built with electric heat. A lot of the people in the development put in propane. So they remodeled, they put in central heating, or they put in propane heating, or what have you. But I'm not here that much during the winter, so this is just to keep things warm during the spring and fall when it can get cold at night. So I went with it's still an expensive upgrade to switch from the 1980s era analog mercury-based line voltage thermostats to digital ones, but they regulate the heat so much better. And I figured the summer is a good time to fix your heating system, because if there's a problem, you have some time to find a professional to undo what you did. This was actually the site of my first home automation experiment. This is where I messed up a 4-way switch so badly trying to install X10 home automation equipment that I had to hire an electrician to help me untangle the wiring. And one of the light switches still does not work. I have silenced you, Jerry.
I don't know what to say.
4-way switches are a tremendous pain in the neck. And
more so than 3-way switches?
what was that?
More so than three-way switches?
Yes, the reason why is, and the some of the newer home automation technology has fixed this, but the four-way, what they used to do for the three-way and the four-way is that you would have to rewire the way the switch worked. So essentially, you would, if I remember correctly from the X10 days, you would rewire it so that the extra wires that would come up from the four-way would act as a data control line, and only one set of wires would actually control the power, and it would only be controlled at the main switch. But it's been years since I looked at that wiring diagram, and again, I messed it up so much I needed a professional. Anytime I tried to deal with a four-way switch, it did not turn out well with any sort of... in Queens, I tried to wire up the common hallway with which had one switch at each floor level, since it's a three-story building, to cover the hall lights. I tried to put a switch there that would, you press it and then it would count down 20 minutes and turn the lights off, so that the hallway lights would not be constantly on. And I had a good electrician back in the day, and he couldn't figure it out, and he had to call his friend Jimmy. So Jimmy was at the top of Jimmy was at the top of the stairs, and John was at the bottom of the stairs, and they were just yelling back and forth to each other because they couldn't figure out how to wire this thing. Now, one of these days I need to replace it, but John is retired, and I never knew where to find Jimmy. So I'm hoping it doesn't fail so soon, because I no longer have an electrician I trust. Anyway, this is a lesson to you. If you have a really good electrician,
don't let them move away.
Well, hold on to them. And if they decide that they're going to leave, please make sure they have a good friend to recommend before they leave. Because I've lost all of my good handymen. There was John the electrician, there was Gus the painter, and they all retired. And now I have nobody who I can trust. I have a guy, I don't distrust him, but he isn't as good as his predecessors. So the lesson is, people who know what they're doing are worth their weight in gold. Just don't tell them that, because they'll jack up the price. On the other hand, don't tell them you think they're horrible. Just middle ground. So that's been my little project here. What I do have in every room here is a temperature sensor. So I can, using Home Assistant, monitor the individual temperatures in each room. And I decided, instead of temperature sensors aren't that expensive. But, a bunch of thermostats adds up if you needed smart ones. Even the investment of the digital ones is $25 a pop, which isn't bad, but we'll see what happens in the long term. But I have an emergency backup system for, in the event one of the thermostats fails or is misconfigured and one of the rooms in the house is freezing, I have a neighbor who will come over and manually turn the thermostat on for me if we're not here. So neighbors who don't leave when it gets cold are also very valuable.
Cool.
Yeah, this is the neighbor with the propane heat. So that's my home automation journey for the week, and my 3D printing journey for the week. So why did I spend so much time on this? I don't always, but it's because I couldn't find that much to talk about this week. I only found, like 5 stories. For example, Google has laid the groundwork for an improved Find My Phone system, where they're going to use other Android devices in order to find your phone. So this is the way that Tile works, by the way. So the way the Tile works is you download an app on your phone, and that app is scanning for any tiles. And if it finds a tile, not just your tile, if it finds somebody else's tile, it'll send that note to the Tile server, so that the Tile server knows where all the tiles are, and it can tell you. So it creates a distributed network. And apparently Google wants to do this in Android, where if you say Find My Phone, it'll go out and look for your phone, and it'll marshal all of the other Android phones to do it. So
I wonder how it does this securely.
Well, remember, your phone is always, when it's looking for Wi-Fi, is always broadcasting with a MAC address. Although, admittedly, nowadays, that MAC address is, didn't they make it so that it changes? I was a little vague on that whole MAC address cycling thing that they do.
My understanding was that this uses Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it can. The thing is, if your Bluetooth is on.
And how do you stop people from, because clearly this needs to work without user intervention, right? Because it's not like you can, you're looking for your phone, so you need to enable find your phone on your phone, because if you could do that, then you'd have your phone and you wouldn't need to find it.
Yeah, which means, like many things, you have to be able to know this in advance, or at least know that that you want to turn on this feature.
So how do you, I don't know. Okay,
So this is, again, the crowdsourced network that all these companies are doing to essentially find items. So we'll see what actually happens, because remember, this is still in the early days where they say they're going to do this, but we don't really have anything. A couple of reporters saying something doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I would be surprised if it wasn't true, because their competitors are doing it. But I haven't asked you, since it's on the same subject, what do you feel about Amazon Sidewalk, which there was a big kerfuffle about?
I'm not a big fan.
Well, why?
As a general rule, I believe that more cameras is bad.
Well, remember, Sidewalk is their idea that you will give a little of your bandwidth so that other devices that are low bandwidth can access the internet, and in exchange, other people will do the same. So it's a way to create an inexpensive.
This is not the camera thing where we're sharing your Ring camera with the police.
No, that's Neighbor. That's Neighbors.
Okay.
This is their attempt to create a low bandwidth distributed network for IoT devices by marshaling essentially a radio that's built into newer Amazon devices.
Then I would say that as long as it's opt-in.
They made it opt-out.
Of course they did.
Well,
I'm actually kind of okay with that, because if you're the type of person that cares about your bandwidth usage, then you're probably going to know about this and be able to opt out of it.
Well, the simple truth is, when it comes to bandwidth, they're not going to be streaming video. They're going to be, sending very small data packets. So the Sidewalk network, if I understand correctly, is not designed for them to, let's say, send the output from your Ring camera.
Yes,
but
I can
sensors.
see this as being it's an extra attack surface for getting onto your network from outside.
I think it's supposed to be an isolated network, but that is not a perfect thing.
Well, it has to get to the internet using your own internet or using your own
Yeah,
internal
that's why I'm
network.
saying it may be isolated, but it will not be perfect, because, again, people find exploits. It's a hole that Amazon certainly wants to keep secure, but that's not a guarantee. But if you read the news stories on this, people were sort of crying, Amazon wants to steal your bandwidth and use you to give people free internet, which suggests that people don't know what they're talking about.
No, I mean, that sounds like I don't know if steal is the appropriate term if you agree to it.
Well, no, I'm saying,
accurate.
I'm talking about, the news stories, which were much more alarmist and did not have a nuanced explanation. The nuanced explanation is we want to create a shared network where these devices can roam. And we don't think that we could, build towers everywhere. So we want to have you help us do that. If you have one of these devices, you're going to share a little bit of your bandwidth. Again, such a small amount that unless you have satellite, you're not going to care. And in exchange, other people will do the same for you. Was there outcry when Comcast started putting on their routers a second guest network so that people could walk around the neighborhood and access Xfinity TV, Xfinity Wi-Fi? I think it was
I don't think there was, but
it's the same idea.
it's not though.
No, that's full internet.
Because
That's actually worse.
that network could be completely isolated from your internal network. I mean, it completely bypassed it, right?
Yeah, this.
Whereas this has to go over your local network.
Yeah, it's supposed to be isolated though. If it's designed correctly, it shouldn't be able to cause any trouble on your local network. But we're back to the term designed correctly. You can't trust that there will be any sort of design consideration in these things. So we're back to
IoT. Our security on IoT devices is notoriously and historically horrible.
Well, Amazon at least has more resources than some of the other companies. But remember what our friend the Door-to-Door Geek said on the subject. Everything that we discuss should be on its own network and not in his normal computing environment. So he is talking about some of these home automation devices. So one of the standard techniques for isolating it is to put it on if they're mostly Wi-Fi, to put it on a separate network. So to have your own isolated network that doesn't access any of your internal devices. And to only open up very specific holes between that network and your main system. So that you can go in.
But man, once they get on the wire, I mean,
yeah. But again, there's all sorts of security options you can do in your home to take these devices and put them on a separate network to make sure that you can access them. When it comes to some of these Wi-Fi devices, remember what I did. With all of the...
What did you do?
For a lot of the Wi-Fi devices, I reflashed them with an open source firmware and wiped what the company put on them out completely. That doesn't make it 100% secure either, but it eliminates the possibility that a manufacturer will do something. Now I have to trust a bunch of open source maintainers, but that's a whole other problem. Everything has trade-offs in this world. I admit to having a Ring video doorbell, even though I am not happy with the people at Ring, because I had it and I don't feel like changing it right now. It is isolated.
But there's not really an equivalently easy to use and well priced Ring doorbell, video doorbell.
Well, the thing is that I would really like something that would allow me to stream the video from it. And one of the problems with Ring is they originally designed it as battery operated, even though they always supported power over doorbell wiring. And they made it so that in order for me to get access to recordings of what happens at my house, I have to pay them extra money. So I would be perfectly happy if I could find something that did RTSP or something else, and I would go just like a security camera, have it constantly recording. But, we get back to a few logistics problems with that.
Sure. I mean, you don't want to run your own Blue Iris server for a doorbell.
Well, I have more. Remember, I have more than just a doorbell. So look at the two systems that I've ended up using recently. I've been using Wyze, which only does RTSP if you get a third-party firmware. And I could do that. It's not like on most of my Wyze version 2s, I'm using their somewhat officially beta RTSP firmware that they don't update very often. Why? Because the cameras are easy to install and there's a low barrier there for me. So I do have a bunch of them. Their Wyze 3s do not have an RTSP firmware as of now, and when they do, I will flash to that because the camera's better quality. But I could go get a Eufy or something else that might do RTSP. But that gives me, again, yet another company to deal with, or a transition. So everything has its trade-offs, so I compromise in a few areas. And eventually there will be a point at which I won't compromise. As for Sidewalk, which is where we started with this tangent. I don't have enough Amazon devices to really make that worth it. Philips Hue apparently was mistakenly removed from the Play Store and has been returned. And the people at Optimum, which is a cable concern in my area, have decided that they are going to slash upload speeds for no particular reason other than they say that they are just aligning it with other providers. Well, I just have to comment on this. Altice USA, which bought Optimum and again is now running it. I believe it's a French company. I have a very long relationship with Optimum and Cablevision, who used to be their owner before they sold it off. But I used to work in a building that the landlord was actually Cablevision, so there were a bunch of Cablevision employees there and operations. But anyway, that aside, after Altice bought them, they did a lot of very questionable things, to be polite. And now they're doing this questionable thing, which is not we're offering you more, or we're raising our rates. We're raising our rates because every company does that, but we're actually going to slow you down because we don't think there's a competitive advantage to giving you what we've been giving you. So let's give you less. Fortunately, they're not my cable provider. They're not available anywhere near me. Well, that's inaccurate. I can go 20 minutes and be in an Optimum neighborhood, but they're not anywhere within walking distance of my house. So I'm in Spectrum and Fios territory, so I can complain about that.
Having 100 megabits up and only 100 megabits down and only 5 megabits up is just, wow.
If I were Fios, I'd be making a play. Now, admittedly, Fios and Verizon have not demonstrated that they want expansion. But if they wanted expansion, this would be a wonderful time to advertise. If you are in the state of Texas, apparently a lot of people in Texas are regretting that they opted into remote control of their thermostats. So did you ever participate in any of these programs where you get a discounted thermostat? I know you're not in Texas, but they have them in many states, where you would get a discounted offer on a smart thermostat in exchange for allowing your power concern to adjust your thermostat during high peak usage times?
I have never heard of such a creature.
Well, in New York, a few years ago, Con Edison, who's my power company, did offer this. They offered a device where they would give you like a free smart air conditioner controller, but at certain times they would adjust it. Now, I got rid of it, not because of that fact, because I understood, even though I didn't like that all the time, but I got rid of it because they gave me a piece of junk, and I built my own that worked much more reliably. But I understand why you would do this, except Texas already has this bad power management representation. So what happened earlier this year, Texas, as you of course know, had a massive blackout during a period where the temperatures were unseasonably cold. So they can't handle cold, they can't handle heat. And it would suggest that after last time they should have possibly worked on this problem. I am sympathetic. Texas is a large place. But if the name of your organization is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, wouldn't that suggest that you should be reliable?
Or that you're trying to be reliable.
Yeah, well, in New York, when the local electric and gas companies were that unreliable, the government threatened to find a new franchise. Not that that always works, but they were not very happy and demanded answers about why those companies couldn't do what it was they were supposed to be doing. I don't know. I don't follow the news in Texas. Is the Texas government demanding to know why the local power concern, which has a government involvement, cannot serve the needs of its customers?
I would go with no.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. And I'm not going to... think that one of the functions of government, and I know this is one you may disagree with me on, is to shine a light on certain matters. So this is something.
About as vague as you could possibly get.
Well, if I got more specific, we might fight about it, which is fine. But again, I think one of the functions of government is to use what they used to call the power of the people to effect change. So here, it's not setting regulation. It is saying this is a public utility. It's granted a franchise by the local government. And there are certain obligations that they have in order to be allowed to have that franchise. One of them would be some certain level of reliability. And if they can't achieve that, then there's no reason to renew the franchise.
Okay.
I don't know. I was sort of looking forward to when my home state of New York actually said that they were going to terminate Spectrum's franchise as a cable operator in the state, and then they backed down. I would have loved to see that happen, just to see what would actually come of it. If any of these companies were afraid that they might lose business, they might actually do something more consumer friendly. That is the only way to get companies to change. I'm not saying I want the government to always do it, but the only way that companies do customer friendly things is if it's in their own financial best interest.
Of course.
So I would like it to be in their financial best interest to treat me better as a customer.
And the best way to do that is to make it not a monopoly.
Exactly. But what the government has done, franchising in a lot of these areas, means that there's a government-supported monopoly. That's what franchises are, if you have one exclusive franchise. And
all monopolies are government-sponsored.
That's an interesting thought. I thought they were more government-ignored.
No, normally they're, well...
Because officially speaking, the government is against monopolies.
No,
I said officially speaking.
No,
unofficially,
it's monopolies that it doesn't put in place.
You're not getting an argument about that one from me. The government has said, for a century, that they think monopolistic behavior is bad, but they support monopolistic behavior.
Yes.
When it suits them. And I don't really like hypocrisy, which that is. I'm waiting for those predictive dystopian futures where the entire world is run by a corporation. Like there are like 3 megacorps that run everything. Or where Taco Bell is the only restaurant.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see if you got that reference.
I got it.
Oh, good.
Yay, Demolition Man.
Yeah. Not everybody would recognize that reference. Anyway, in one other very strange, let's just call it lateral move, T-Mobile is apparently selling 5G gin, or 5Gin. So you can get drunk on 5G.
How does that work?
As a marketing tool, they are actually giving out gin that they're calling 5Gin. You can't get drunk on actual 5G technology. This is they're actually giving gin out. So it is T-Mobile 5Gin commemorative booze. So you know what's going to come next?
6 Tonic?
Well, I was going to go with Verizon Vodka.
T-Mobile Tequila?
Well, this is T-Mobile. But they might actually put out another one that might be T-Mobile Tequila.
AT&T Amaretto?
You never know. Boost beer. Anyway, jokes aside, I just thought this was sort of interesting that T-Mobile continues to do things that I can comment on as being interesting. If you look at the pictures, they gave people an ultra capacity 5-gin mixology kit, which apparently included not only your 5-gin, but your 5-gin tonic, etc. And apparently they are selling bottles for $30 plus shipping, and supplies are limited because this is a limited marketing opportunity. Oh, apparently if you don't drink alcohol, you can also get 5 ginger beer in a 6-pack.
T-Mobile also, their CEO is different.
Hopefully.
So, yeah, I can see this. And it kind of fits.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see how companies market. So, as I said, it's something of a slow week and things to talk about. So, I've run out of things to talk about. Jerry, did anything exciting happen this week? I assume you're no longer in a truck?
I'm no longer in the truck. We made it back.
Okay.
We successfully found a quinceañera dress for my daughter. And we found the dresses that my wife will wear.
Oh, so now I know the purpose of the trip, which I didn't previously.
Right. My daughter's turning 15. We're having a big quinceañera dress. So we went down to Miami to find her a dress.
Okay. Is that there are no dresses in Jacksonville, or there are just better dresses in Miami?
There's a larger selection.
Okay.
The Hispanic
I am not an expert on the dress market.
Larger than the Hispanic population of Jacksonville. So,
okay.
Just a larger selection.
Okay, this is a subject I admit I do not know about. I am behind on my knowledge of dresses or where one can buy them, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
There's nothing wrong with taking a day trip. You were there for a day or more than a day?
2 days.
Okay, what's wrong with taking a little trip?
Nope.
I remember
it was a good time. The only thing that went bad was I started the podcast recording off the wrong microphone,
and
then had issues getting you the files afterwards.
Yeah, so I'm prepared to save locally. I've put this Godzilla that's running it does not have enough storage, so I've put an SD card in it to save a backup version. So
well, I think I discovered part of the problem, so hopefully we won't have an issue this time.
Yeah, I thought it had to do with the fact that Google Drive, which you've been sending me the recordings through, apparently has upped its permission levels, which is why it kept asking me to request access from you. At least I thought that's what it was.
I think it came down to a bug in Firefox was not asking me. Normally when I send them to you, it tells me, hey, you need to share this with that person. And I say, okay. And the last 2 times I've sent them to you, it hasn't.
Yeah, which is why I kept sending you those emails. I can't get this. And that's why the program didn't go out until 2 days later. Which I know disappointed everybody. Unless they only listen to us on Mondays. But are we a weekday or weekend?
I don't have anything else to discuss. But we've already managed to stretch like 6 stories into almost an hour. So.
Yep. So we'll wrap up for the night. So next week, guess what it is? It's July.
It is.
Well, you know what that means. Our anniversary is coming up.
Ooh.
Well, the second week in July would be when we recorded the 0th episode of this show. And that was 11 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, who would have thought we'd still be here? I think the reason why we're still here is we didn't think about it. Because when you think about it, it seems like a long time. If you don't think about it, it doesn't seem like quite as long a time.
That's a true statement.
So that brings us to the end of this week's program. We'll be back again next week. I'm also, next week I am heading home to get my mail. But the current schedule has me back here for recording. Mostly because next weekend is Independence Day weekend. And I'd prefer to be here than there for Independence Day weekend. We have a lot of fun activities happening around here. We have shows coming in. For example, on July 4th, there will be a magic show followed by 4th of July fireworks.
Ooh.
Then the following week, we're having a mentalist. Last summer, they canceled all the local community activities here. So they're coming back. So I'm excited. That and garbage collection is coming back, which makes me really excited.
Really?
Yeah, this community doesn't have garbage collection during the winter. It only has it during the summer when there are enough people to justify it since it's seasonal. So garbage collection starts next week, so I don't have to haul all the garbage to the dumpster. I'm not unhappy about not having to haul garbage to a dumpster. Really does stink up the car. Anyway, everybody enjoy their week. And if you have anything that you'd like us to talk about between now and next week, send us a note.
Yes, please, and thank you, because we love feedback.
Well, not just feedback, suggestions on things we might talk about in the... So, what I want to do is I want to have like a stable of discussion topics that we can pull out if we don't have as many stories. So let's say next week, if there aren't many stories, I could talk about matter. Or in the past, we talked about chi. We talked about Z-Wave and Zigbee. We talked about various other factors. So if somebody has a really good idea for a discussion topic, we really have to embrace this techno buffet thing. I paid for a logo and a domain and everything. It wasn't that much. I'm just saying, if I spent money, I should make the best of it. Why waste it? So shall we adjourn until next week when we will be flooded with people suggesting things?
You're so optimistic. I love it.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to make them feel guilty. I know they're out there. I'm not good at guilt. It's one of those skills I have to master.
It's a parental thing. It's a mother thing, really.
Oh, my grandmother was good at it. My mother's reasonably good at it. Maybe I should ask them to come and make you all feel guilty. Well, actually, my grandmother can't, but at least my mother can. Should I have my mother record a segment to make all of you feel guilty? She's here.
No.
Okay. I would do that if it actually would work. I could bring back the podcast mime. Extra points if you've been listening long enough to remember the podcast mime.
Let's just call it a day.
Yeah, I think once we start talking about the podcast mime, it's a day. Goodbye, Jerry.